My name is Susan Farson. I'm a retired patent attorney from Fort Wayne, Indiana, and I'm grateful I'm not the facilitator.
My name is Lester Brooks. I teach in the history department at Anne Arundel Community College in Arnold, Maryland.
My name is Tim Moore from the Center for the Study of the American Constitution at the University of Wisconsin in Madison, Wisconsin. It's great to be here. And hello, Mark Dickman.
And if you could introduce yourselves, please.
My name is Henry Charles.
My name is Jacob Krause.
My name is Cale Fuller.
My name is Aiden Jordan, and as you already know, our teacher is the illustrious Mr. Dickman.
Okay.
Illustrious. Okay.
So, and as you already know, we're doing question 2. Unit 2. One founder claimed that the representatives refine and enlarge the public views by passing them through the medium of a chosen body of citizens whose wisdom may best discern the true interests of their country. Do you agree or disagree with this claim? What alternative systems of representation were considered by the founders? What alternative systems of representation, if any, should be considered in the 21st century? And you may begin.
Madam Chairman, I agree with James Madison's argument in Federalist 10 that representatives should act as a filter in order to discern the common good by working both for their constituents and the nation as a whole. In effect, a representative should do more than simply mirror the views of the voters they represent, by understanding both the views held by their constituents and what is in the best interest of the nation as a whole. In doing so, Congress becomes a marketplace of ideas in which diverse groups are forced to negotiate, compromise, and arrive at solutions that respect the right of the minority, as seen with the Voting Rights Act of 1965. In addition, while factious individuals may gain support within their own districts, as seen with Representatives Green and Ocasio-Cortez, it becomes more difficult for this divisiveness to spread. The greater the diversity, the more difficult it becomes for one faction to gain control over others.
Madam Chairman, prior to the Philadelphia Convention, the founders considered alternative forms of representation, ranging from confederations to republics to parliamentary systems. The founders first considered confederations, such as Benjamin Franklin's Albany Plan and Joseph Galloway's 1774 Plan of Union, before adopting the Articles of Confederation in 1781. In addition, a variety of systems of representation were considered under the early state constitutions, ranging from Pennsylvania's of 1776, which provided for a unicameral legislature and that has been considered one of the most democratic in U.S. history, to Virginia's landed aristocracy, and to the frame of government from the Massachusetts Constitution of 1780, which provided for checks and balances and a bicameral legislature, which became the framework for the U.S. Constitution. Finally, in early 1787, the Confederation Congress proposed 3 resolutions, which would have led to a more parliamentary system, only to be superseded by the Philadelphia Convention, which drew upon all of these experiences to develop a new form of representation under the Constitution.
Madam Chairman, the 55 firmers who attended the Philadelphia Convention considered parliamentary, confederal, and republican forms of government. With the Union in disarray under the Articles of Confederation, delegates were left to consider new systems of government that represented the people rather than the states, while increasing the power of the national government. In considering both the Virginia and Hamilton plans, the delegates looked to build upon the British parliamentary system, with the lower house based on population, then selecting an upper house, with both houses choosing an executive in a mixture of a parliamentary and republican government. However, 4 states opposed these plans, leading William Patterson to propose the New Jersey plan, which would have altered the Confederation's structure but maintained the unicameral legislature based on equal representation. Ultimately, the Connecticut Compromise would blend the 2 systems to create Congress, with the House of Representatives based on population and a Senate based on equal representation.
Madam Chairman, alternative systems of representation which eliminate gerrymandering, voter suppression, and plurality voting should be considered to ensure freer, fair, and more competitive elections. While 360 proposed laws to restrict voting in 47 states are clearly what James Madison referred to as local schemes of injustice, legislation such as the For the People Act of 2021 should be considered to ensure free and fair elections and reverse the effects of the 2013 Shelby County versus Holder decision. In addition, the use of ranked choice voting and runoff elections, as used in Maine and Georgia respectively, and the use of independent redistricting commissions should be considered to provide for more competitive elections. While not every district can be competitive in the 21st century, we should look to revitalize our democracy by creating a system where, As late Justice Ginsburg noted, the voters should choose their representatives, not the other way around. We're now ready for your follow-up questions.
Okay. Tim, would you like to lead off?
Sure. Let's stick back in the 18th century, guys. What was the Anti-Federalist critique or critiques of this system of representation set up in the Constitution?
Madam Chairman, many of the anti-federalists at this time feared a stronger central government, as seen with the weakness of the Articles of Confederation, largely due to the historical precedents of the tyranny of the British during the colonial period. And one particular critique of the Constitution is that it took power further away from the people, and they believe that if the power was closer to the people in a state government, they would be more likely to be more beholden to the people and respect their rights.
But okay, you're right on powers. My question is about the representation system.
So could you repeat your question, please?
What was the Anti-Federalist critique of Madison's filtered theory?
The Anti-Federalists thought that multiple different factions would be created that would, in effect, work against the common good. And then in Federalist 10, Madison responded by creating the theory that multiple different factions would, in fact, filter each other out and work towards the common good. So the Anti-Federalists feared that these factions would create a majority tyranny and subjugate other people and work against the rights of individuals.
Madam Chairman, I would also add on that many anti-federalists didn't buy Madison's argument that representatives would consider the common good, and in many ways they thought of it almost as an argument for virtual representation.
Madam Chairman, I would like to add to my peers' points that, of course, these were true, but the major disagreement was with the level of representation, that the government should be closer to the people and not a large government, so that the factions don't take control, opposing James Madison's theories, such as was noted in the Sentinel papers that disagree and would want more centralized local governments to be in charge rather than a more federal government.
Thank you.
Lester?
Let me ask this. Let's say you are part of a group and your concerns are not being met by Congress. What should you do? If you want your concerns met, what should you do?
Of course, in the modern day, there's several ways to go about this. If it's strictly by the federal government, you can, of course, call up your representative or your senator to address these bills. You can form a petition of other citizens to help address this. You can form a political action unit to help further the goals of your cause. There's much that you can do, and these require a lot of action, but not a lot of people would go about all of these means, would just go about some of them.
And what if your concerns still aren't met?
If you take all of these courses of action,
You've taken all what you just said, call your rep, petition, PAC. Congress still hasn't met your concerns.
then it is always an option in our system of government to run for election yourself and to get people of like mind to vote for you and to get your cause met by being a part of the legislature itself.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Perhaps you can explore a little more on the decision of the Constitution as it was drafted. They originally had 30,000 people in a congressional district, but there were, why was that chosen? I mean, is there some reason they chose 30,000?
While the exact number can vary, there's a thing Madison wrote in Federalist 10, essentially saying that there's a minimum number of representatives per people that can actually adequately represent them. And he wrote that having too many representatives would lead to a sort of cacophony and there'd be no adequate deliberation, while not having enough would lead to not enough representation of the different groups we have in this country. So while that's a sliding scale, I think there's no way to say an exact number of people per representative.
Well, building on that, some people say that the House of Representatives right now isn't very representative of the United States as a whole. Do you agree with that or disagree with that? And what would you do to change it if you do agree?
I would agree with that to an extent, and I believe that one great way to increase representation is to implement ranked choice voting, as my peer said in his answer. This would allow for more views than just the two main parties to be heard, and would allow people to, in a way, increase their own good feelings towards the government by feeling that they are more representative. We can see that in Maine, voter turnout has improved since ranked choice voting has been implemented, showing this.
I would disagree with my peer in this matter, in that the House of Representatives, to the extent in which the framers created it, does represent the wills of the people. In that our current parties, while being potentially a detriment based on their polarization, they are big tent parties in which multiple views can be represented. So we have small factions of agrarians in the Republican Party, we have small faction of environmentalists in the Democrat Party. All of these views are coming together to represent the actual views of their constituencies.
But are the people truly reflected? You guys are young. Are your representatives really understanding of your points of view and your concerns? So there is maybe an age issue. There may be a race issue. There may be a class or poverty. Does Congress fully represent that whole array?
Madam Chairman, I would say that the Congress does represent the voting population. However, there's a very large age gap and a sort of cultural difference between the way that a younger generation and an older generation would think of things. And we can see states such as Alabama that pass legislation on transgender youth. However, these representatives that sponsor the bills aren't necessarily active in that community, or they haven't even talked to anybody that is affected by that legislation.
I would like to add that while they're not directly representing the ideas of they're not directly representing the people themselves. They are representing the ideas. So the majority of representatives in the modern day are straight white Protestant men, but they have reflected the ideas of the people themselves.
We have a time though. I'd like to hear more, but we have a time connection, so you deserve a round of applause. And we'll have a little bit of feedback for you. Lester, if you want to start.
Okay. Your introduction, you gave a nice history of bringing it up to the Constitutional Convention. And I think that captured my attention because you provided that background. And I think that was strong. You talked about Congress as a marketplace of ideas. And again, that seemed to reflect some thinking that it was more than a mirror. And so what is Congress supposed to do? I would say that in response to my question about what you can do, you did say the PACs, petitions, you could run for office, but there's some other things that you could think of, such as revolution Right? If we go back to the Declaration of Independence, the Confederate States of America had their own idea of meeting their concerns that they believed were not being met. The Civil Rights Movement, they had their way of doing things. And of course, just a few months ago, January 6th, they had their views. So I would, suggest that you think about those things. They're not just the traditional way of trying to meet your concerns, but otherwise, good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll chime in here. Your opening statement revealed some historical research, my friends. The fact that you mentioned Pennsylvania, Virginia, Massachusetts Constitution, Galloway Plan, Articles of Confederation, the parliamentary system. But most impressive to me is that you knew that the Articles of Confederation, in a sense, did function through their committees like a parliamentary system. That reveals, I suspect Mr. Dickman's handed you a couple of sources to look into that. So the fact that you knew that, the fact that in your response to the Anti-Federalist Critique, I forget who said it, but it's like, hey, it smacked them is essentially a return to the virtual representation system that they suffered under when they were colonies. So I'm impressed with the historical piece to your presentation. To reinforce what Lester's saying, like go to the how much hell do you want to raise issue. I mean, because the elephant in the room is January 6th. How far do you want to go if you feel like you haven't been represented? So, and it's a tough question. The long train of abuses is to Lester's point is valid, but just put it out there because that's a valid question. It's a valid question. But on the whole, I think you could have been a little more refined on the 30,000 question. But on the whole, I'm really impressed with the history piece to your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good luck the rest of the way.
I also agree that presentation, the history was good. I love the marketplace of ideas and the idea when you mentioned the civil rights movement coming up, that was a lot of negotiation back and forth. It was led by Johnson for the House and Dirksen for the Senate. We have a Republican, we have a Texas, admittedly prejudiced white president who is doing some real serious arm twisting to get this taken care of and to get this as legislation. So it really is a market of ideas and change, and that was nicely done. You just were running out of time, and I could tell you're running out of time that you didn't have a chance to really pull in a lot on the ranked choice voting and the independent review commission, and that's just a time issue there. I enjoyed it very much, but I was trying to get at too the idea of that 30,000. They actually took that from the Northwest Ordinance. I didn't expect you to say that. The idea of they didn't really trust the people, so they wanted lots and lots of people in a congressional district because only the elites could afford to run. And I think that was part of an idea that I was trying to get at. So just think about that, some of that's going on. But I thought it was a really good job, and I enjoyed talking with you. Wish we had more time and could have heard all of the follow-up questions, answers, but you deserve another round of applause.